Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to our channel. We are here in the common room of the Pontifical Institute of Medieval Studies with Stephen Pelle, who is one of the editors of the Dictionary of Old English. First of all, thank you very much, Stephen, for being here with us today.
No, thank you for inviting me.
It's a great pleasure. And I'd start immediately with the first question. And can you tell us something about the origins of the Dictionary of Old English and how it began right here at the University of Toronto?
Yeah, the Dictionary of Old English grew out of a few conferences on the application of computers to concordancing and lexicography that took place at the University of Toronto in the late 1960s and early 1970s. So it's been here for a long time. The dictionary itself started up in the years of the early 1970s. The driving force behind it was a professor of Old English here named Angus Cameron, although he had support from the Center for Medieval Studies here and other departments here as well. The project itself, in terms of the actual writing of dictionary entries, that began in the 1980s. The first sort of 5 or 10 years of the project were mainly devoted to accumulating the bibliographical resources that were necessary and also creating the Dictionary of Old English electronic corpus, which is the bedrock of the actual project. So the first letter D was published in I think 1986. And we have been chipping away at the Old English alphabet ever since. We're currently working on the second half of entries for the letter L, although L is the alphabetical midpoint of the dictionary, but we've actually done a bit more than half of the entries for it, because one of the things that we do is often when we're writing a word that begins with, in our case, some letter from A through L, we'll often work on the compounds and relatives of that word that occur later in the alphabet as well. So we're between, I don't know, say 50 and 60% done with the actual entries for the dictionary.
And how many people are currently involved in the project?
There are 4 of us who work there full time. 2 drafting editors, or just editors, which are Robert Getz, who's also a professor at the Center for Medieval Studies, and myself. We have a copy editor, Cameron Laird, who is in charge of not only copy editing proper, but also sort of supervising the graduate students who work for us. We have a few graduate students who work as proofreaders from the Center for Medieval Studies. They, as part of their funding package, they receive a certain number of hours to work at the dictionary each year. And we have a postdoctoral fellow who splits her time between writing entries for us and working on her own research.
In any case, less than 10 people, right?
Less than 10, yes. Even if you include the graduate students who only work 100 hours a year for us, then yes, it's fewer than 10 people. 4 full-time, we have 1 part-time administrative assistant, and then our graduate students.
And you are there at the Roberts Library, right?
Yes.
Okay, so let's ask you something more specific. What sets the DOE apart from other historical dictionaries, such as, for instance, the Oxford Dictionary for English or the Bosworth-Tuller?
One of the things that we've tried to, or that we're trying to accomplish with the Dictionary of Old English, is to base all of our entries on a truly comprehensive examination of the evidence. And that's, which is to say, in most cases, for an entry that we write, we will examine every occurrence of that entry in the corpus of Old English. That's something that isn't feasible for a project like the Oxford English Dictionary, and wasn't really possible for Bosworth-Tuller. So that's sort of one of the things that we believe sets us apart. although we do link to the OED and the Middle English Dictionary too, so you can kind of, if you go to a Dictionary of Old English entry that for a word that continues on later in the language, you can see how it continues on fairly easily if you just click on the links to the relevant MED and OED entries. But the DOE, it's our comprehensiveness, our sort of attention to detail in terms of Latin sources and manuscript variants, our very detailed account of the spellings and forms that words can take, not only in the corpus texts, which is to say the editions that make up our corpus, but also variant manuscripts, which we check fairly exhaustively when we're writing the entries.
Speaking about the corpus, how do you choose the text, the critical editions? What kind of edition do you choose? It's not easy.
Oh, I mean, most of those decisions happened long before I came around. The rationale for choosing different corpus texts and different editions as the basis for corpus texts, that if you feel like digging up the original plan for the Dictionary of Old English, which was published back in the 70s here at Toronto, you'll find more detailed answers. But in a nutshell, we tried to base everything on what seemed to be the standard critical edition of the work that was used most often in the scholarship.
Beowulf, for instance, for Beowulf, what kind of edition do you use?
The poetry is a little bit different. So for the sake of consistency for the poetry, if we use the so-called ASPR, Anglo-Saxon Poetic Records, which is a 6-volume edition of most of what survives of Old English poetry, as our corpus text, and that's partly because the ASPR is a standard work. It's frequently cited by people who are looking at the Old English poetic corpus more broadly rather than in individual poems, and also just for the sake of ease of reference, rather than having to go to 100-something editions of poems. We have 6 volumes that we can look at. But the sort of research library of the Dictionary of Old English, our bibliographical resources, we have copies of basically every edition of every text that we can find. So even if something is not even if a particular edition isn't the basis of the corpus text, we will consult various editions if we have questions about forms or punctuation or anything like that.
Okay, you told us that the project started back in the 70s, so a long time ago. And I wanted to ask you, how has technology influenced the development and accessibility of the DOE?
Yeah, well, I mean, the project it really started because of some, relatively pioneering scholars who could kind of see the way that computer technology would change the way that dictionaries could be made and how different language corpora could be searched. So the idea of we like to say that we're one of the first digital humanities projects, kind of. But obviously, it's a lot different now. The way of interacting with the dictionary now and the way of writing the dictionary now are a lot different from what they were in the 1980s or even much more recently than that. I mean, the dictionary first was published on microfiche. The first several letters of the dictionary were published on microfiche. Eventually, we moved from microfiche to CD-ROM, and then from CD-ROM to web access. And the corpus was the same. The corpus was not searchable before we had the CD-ROM. Before that, it was just a sort of a large concordance on microfiche.
Private.
No, we did sell it. It was available to other users, but it was because it was microfiche. It wasn't searchable in the same way as it is now, and the way that in a way the technology it has made some things easier, and it's made some things more difficult when it comes to writing dictionary entries. Obviously, it's a lot easier now if you have a question about a specific Old English word, to just use Google or something to look up what people have said about that word or about a particular passage in an Old English text.
But we don't know who wrote the entrance.
You don't necessarily, yeah. I mean, you don't. You still have to be careful what your sources are, and it's also made it much easier to go through journals, right? I mean, for a long time, the dictionary basically we employed people whose almost sole job was to index various journal articles on Old English that came out, so we knew what words were being talked about in which articles, so that we could reference them when we were writing the entries for them. All of that, has become much easier to do, but at the same time, because you have access to so much information, there is the problem of, as you said, of trying to figure out what is, trying to discern the signal from the noise, right, and to figure out what's relevant. And also now that it is in theory so much easier to consult so many more resources about things, you want to consult everything that you can when you're writing a dictionary entry. And now the list of things that you can read and maybe feel like you should read before writing an entry on a particular word is much bigger than it was when you were limited to whatever was just within the four walls of the sort of dictionary workroom.
Plus, artificial intelligence is coming. So
yes.
Probably it's going to be a problem for a team, for a project like that, because
it may well be. It's changing. It's changing everything pretty rapidly right now. So.
Yes. And now a rather delicate question: when are you going to be finished?
Oh gosh. Well, what I always say is we are finished. How quickly we finish depends on how many editors we can afford to employ. So the project, the Dictionary of Old English, is funded from several sources. I mean, part of it is subscription income, but more than subscription income, it's grants, donations, gifts from
all over the world, or just here in North America?
All over the world. I mean, it's probably more in Canada and the United States than overseas, but we do get contributions from all over. But the sort of the grant landscape changes, or has changed fairly well. It's changed a lot over the last 10 or I started at the dictionary as an editor 11 years ago, and the sort of relative proportions of what we get from which granting agencies, it's changed quite a bit since then, and it makes it hard to predict exactly how quickly we can finish, because I mean right now we've got, as I mentioned, we have a full-time staff of 4. We're working up to sort of having the resources to employ another 1 or 2 probably drafting editors, and that'll obviously speed up the process. But I would say that a recent article that the University of Toronto magazine had about the Dictionary of Old English project, had it guessing. We were also asked to give an estimate of when we would be done in there, and 2040s, sometime in the 2040s, we think, maybe. 2040s. Yeah, but again, it'll depend on that's if we are able to employ the number of people that we want to employ, and to have a steady stream of good research assistants and postdocs coming in.
Mm-hmm. To conclude, one last question. How do you envision the future of the DOE, both in terms of digital access and academic impact?
In terms of digital access, I mean, we're really hoping to move more and more toward open access. Right now, the dictionary is a subscription resource, and you know, our current funding model necessitates that. It's part of the revenue for the project is the money that we get from subscriptions. As the project gets closer to completion, and as hopefully we can secure different lines of funding, it would be ideal to make the project more easily accessible to the general public. We do have a program where you can register and get a certain number of free accesses per
How
year.
much does the subscription cost?
The subscription, considering how much subscriptions to some digital resources cost, it's not that much. It's 200 Canadian or US if you're not in Canada, for each resource, $200 for each resource per year, if for institutions, and then for individuals it's 75.
Okay, so if I want to buy it privately,
it would be $75 a year. Yes. Right. So, open access is something that we've got our eye on. We're trying to institute linkages with more projects that have become digital as the years have gone by. So we've already got links to, say, the Middle English Dictionary and the Oxford English Dictionary. Those have been going strong for 10 years or so now, probably more. But some of the other dictionaries that we also reference fairly frequently, like the English Dialect Dictionary or the Dictionary of the Older Scottish Tongue, when we first instituted the linkages to the MED and the OED, they were not online yet, but they are now. So we're looking into what it would take to kind of expand our lexicographical network in that way. Sorry, the question was the future.
The future and the academic impact.
Academic impact, yeah. Well, we're hoping that we can, be the dictionary of reference for Old English for a long time to come. And we're hoping that the project does keep going after it's completed, so that, the University of Toronto has also been, it's always been a strong center of Old English studies in North America. And we are, we anticipate that it will continue to be so even after the dictionary is done. So we're hoping that we will have people here who can continue to keep the project up to date. Not saying that there's necessarily going to be an entire second edition in the works after the first one comes out, but if you look at the way that the MED and the OED do things, what having a digital dictionary allows you to do is to make corrections. And
it's a work in progress. It's never finished.
Yeah. So I don't think that. I think we will get through the alphabet, but I don't think we will. That necessarily means that the dictionary will be done. I'd like to think that there will always be editors here, or people curating the project and its resources to make sure that we can stay relevant and useful for scholars for a very long time.
Okay, so thank you very much, and it was a real pleasure to chat with you. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you.